After listening to Ranvir, Mahi got scared and said, I was just saying like that. Ranvir's grip was hurting Mahi's arm a lot, which made her eyes wet. Seeing Mahi getting scared, Ranvir calmed himself and hugged her. Then he kissed her neck and said, Baby, don't talk like this after today. Otherwise, it will not be good for you. Ranvir's warm breath was feeling on Mahi's neck, which made her whole body shiver. Ranvir picked up Mahi in his arms and brought her to the bed. Mahi was still a little scared. Sometimes, Ranvir's behavior used to scare her. Ranvir laid Mahi on the bed and lied down next to her and said, Did you really miss me? Seeing Mahi's face, Ranvir understood that she was scared of him. So, he asked her to divert her mind. Mahi said slowly, No, I didn't miss you. Saying this, she started looking somewhere else. Ranvir kissed her cheeks and said, Baby, you can't lie to me. Saying this, he put Mahi's face in front of him and started kissing her lips. With every kiss of Ranvir, Mahi's shyness was coming out, which was making Ranvir even more excited. Mahi was now restless. She tried to stop Ranvir, but as if Ranvir didn't want to stop today. Not a day's distance had made Ranvir so restless that he was now losing control of himself. That's when Mahi felt a sharp wave of pain in her stomach and she grabbed her stomach trembling. When Ranvir heard Mahi's trembling voice, he saw her face, which was red with pain. From Mahi's face, it seemed that she was in so much pain. Ranvir asked her, Hey, what happened to you? Then he looked at her from top to bottom and said, Are you hurt somewhere? But when he saw Mahi holding her stomach, he put his hand on her stomach and asked, Does your stomach hurt? Mahi understood what had happened to her, but she couldn't tell Ranvir. Her eyes were filled with tears of pain and shame. Seeing Mahi crying like this, Ranvir also became restless. He then put his hand on her cheeks and asked, Mahi, what happened? Tell me. Should I call the doctor? Mahi said in her trembling voice, No, there is no need for a doctor. Ranvir got up from his bed and took his phone and dialed a number. You are in so much trouble, and you are telling me not to call the doctor? Mahi held Ranvir's hand and said, Please, the doctor can't do anything in this. Then she got up from the bed and said, I am fine. Saying this, as soon as she stood up, a wave of pain rushed into her stomach, and she again sat on the bed holding her stomach. Ranvir sat next to her and hugged her head and said, You are not even telling me, and you are not even letting me call the doctor. How long will you bear this pain? Now Mahi had no choice except to tell Ranvir. She said so gently from Ranvir's chest, My periods have come. Hearing Mahi's words, Ranvir became blank for a while. He didn't understand how to react. But still, he remained normal in front of Mahi. Couldn't you have told me this earlier? Mahi was feeling very shy at this time. She didn't answer Ranvir. Ranvir was also understanding because he knew that Mahi was very shy in these matters. He got up from the bed and picked up Mahi in his lap and dropped her to the washroom. Then he went to the closet room and took out other clothes for Mahi and went to the washroom and gave those clothes to Mahi. Mahi was not raising her head in shame. When Ranvir saw Mahi like this, he filled her face with his palms and raised her face. Mahi's eyes were wet because for the first time she had to share this with a boy. Ranvir looked into her eyes and said, What is there to be so shy about? Look, I am your husband and you can tell me all your things without hesitation. Now don't think too much and change. Saying this, Ranvir kissed Mahi on the forehead and went out of the washroom. It was not that Ranvir did not know anything about this. But he did not know how to pamper girls at this time. Whatever he understood, he did. After coming out, he first wore his t-shirt and then started searching on Google what should be done at this time. After searching, he found out that girls have to endure a lot of pain due to period cramps. Now he understood why Mahi was in so much pain. Thinking this, he was feeling bad that Mahi also has to go through this pain every month. He thought to himself, these girls are so delicate, but they are much stronger than us in terms of tolerance. Thinking this, he searched for a solution to get relief from this. Then he asked his mate at intercom to bring ginger and jaggery tea along with a hot water bag. Meanwhile, Mahi also came out of the washroom. She saw the battery, which had just changed. She quietly went to bed. Ranvir came to her and covered her with a blanket. Then the door of her room was knocked. Ranvir opened the door and asked his mate to come in. His mate put all the things on the table and went out. Ranvir took the car and went to Mahi and asked her to sit. Mahi listened to Ranvir and sat down. Then Ranvir asked her to hold a cup of decoction. Finish it quickly. You will get a lot of relief from this. Mahi was looking at Ranvir surprisingly and was thinking while drinking decoction that how does she know all this? After finishing the decoction, Mahi kept the cup on the side table. Then Ranvir said to her, "Now you sleep comfortably and don't think much." Mahi was also listening to him like a good child. Ranvir once checked the temperature of the water bag by hand. Now the temperature was right. So he put the bag on Mahi's stomach and started to cough lightly. Mahi was also getting a lot of relief. After a long time, Mahi's cramps had reduced to a great extent. Ranvir was sitting there and was looking at his phone. When he looked at Mahi, she was asleep. So he removed the bag and covered Mahi with a blanket. Then a notification came in his phone. He checked the message box and then looked at Mahi. Mahi was now sleeping peacefully. He kissed Mahi's forehead and went out of the room. From there he went straight to RK Villa, where Rudra and Vedant were also present. On the terrace of RK Villa, Ranvir was holding a glass of drink and was standing near the drilling. Vedant and Rudra were both sitting on the chair. Whatever happened today, Rudra and Vedant told everything to Ranvir. Ranvir finished his drink and put his hands on the railing and started looking in front. At this time, his eyes had become very deep. Vedant and Rudra both stood next to him. Vedant took a sip of his drink and said, "They have now reached our house." Rudra said, "Many of our enemies have been born by becoming your underworld king. Now they will try to target our loved ones. And their first target is Mahi. Because this news has reached many people that she is your wife. That's why they have put Vikram Chauhan behind her." Vedant said, "He got out of our hands. If we could catch the man who was peeping in the mansion, then maybe we could find out something." Ranvir said in his cold voice, "He is in our captivity." Rudra and Vedant both said together, "What?" A devil's smile came on Ranvir's face. Rudra asked, "When did you do all this? You had gone to Mumbai, hadn't you?" Ranvir said, "I was in Mumbai, but my men were telling me the news of every moment here. He had caught that man on my order and has imprisoned him in our old factory." Saying this, Ranvir took a cigarette and started taking long sips of it. Vedant said with a bitter smile, "So what are you waiting for? Why don't we get the right information from his throat?" The next day, a man was tied up with a chair. Looking at him, it seemed as if someone had tortured him mercilessly. In front of him, Ranvir, Vedant and Rudra were standing in anger. His face was completely red at that time. Blood was flowing from his hands, but it was not Ranvir's blood, but the blood of the man sitting in front of him who was being tied up. Ranvir went ahead and held his hair and lifted his head and said while looking into his eyes, "There is still time, whatever you know, tell me. Then maybe my mood will become to leave you alive." When that man saw in Ranvir's eyes, he started shivering with fear. At that time, Ranvir's eyes were looking so dangerous that even the spirits of good people were shivering. Whenever the evil within Ranvir was awakened, there was no one more merciless than him. Most of the people who worked with him knew this. Because he had killed many of his enemies by torturing them mercilessly. That man said in fear, "I do not know where Vikram Chauhan will be found at this time, but I know that he has made a deal with a sheikh for that girl and in the next 10 days, he will bring that girl to him." Hearing this, Ranvir's fists tightened with anger. He grabbed that man's neck tightly. His grip was so strong that now that man's breath was stopping. Vedanta Rudra said to Ranvir while keeping him away from that man, "Ranvir, what are you doing? Leave him. Now we have to get a lot of things out of him." Ranvir was venting out that Vikram Chauhan's anger on him. Rudra said, "Look, we will lose our own by killing him. Control yourself." Hearing Rudra's words, Ranvir suddenly let go of his neck. Now that man was coughing loudly. His condition had become worse than before. Ranvir went a little far and stood facing him and started trying to calm his anger by turning one hand in his hair. Rudra said to his men, "Take him to the hospital and remember, he should not die." His men followed the order, picked up that man and went out. After a while, all three of them came out. At that time, Vedanta and Rudra were both sitting on the sofa and talking. After a while, Ranvir also came there. Ranvir had changed his clothes with a shawl. He came and sat next to them on the sofa and started using his phone. Rudra first looked at Ranvir and then asked, "Ranvir, why do you lose your control in anger? If we hadn't stopped you today, you would have killed him." Ranvir looked away from his phone and looked at Rudra. Then he stood up and stopped near the window and put his hand in his pocket and started looking outside. Will Ranvir be able to save Mahi from the threat of Vikram Chauhan? Will he be able to reach Vikram Chauhan in time? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Love Pulse Diaries.